April 17th, 1944. 3:42 a.m. Anzio Beachhead, Italy. Medic First Class Clarence dock, Hargrove. The acrid stench of cordite claws at your nostrils as you crouch in a shell crater, mud sucking at your boots like a living thing. Shrapnel whistles overhead, another 88 millimeters round from the German lines, slamming into the earth 50 yards away, erupting in a geyser of rock and flesh. Your hands, slick with blood that's not yours, press a compress into Private Tommy Reilly's gut. He's 21, from Brooklyn, eyes wide as saucers, gasping, "Doc, ... it burns." Mom is waiting. His intestines bulge through the tear in his abdomen, hot and pulsing. You whisper, "Hold on, Tommy. You're gonna see her, but the morphine syrette is empty." And the tourniquet on his leg won't stop the arterial spray, painting your fatigues crimson. Artillery thunders a relentless Wagnerian symphony. Boom. Rat-a-tat of M1 Garans from the foxholes. Boom. You drag Tommy toward the aid station, 200 yards back through barbed wire and tripwires. His 180 pounds dead weight now. Every step jars your own shrapnel scar from Cassino, a dull fire in your thigh. Jerry spotters have the beachhead zeroed. Flares pop overhead, turning night into sickly yellow day. A bullet snaps past your ear close enough to feel its heat. You dive, Tommy on top of you, his blood pooling warm in the crater. "Not today," you mutter, hauling him up again. The aid station tent looms, canvas flapping like a death shroud. But as you stumble through the flap, Surgeon Lieutenant Elias Cohen looks up from a table slick with gore, his glasses fogged, and shakes his head. No more plasma, no more sulfa, just the moans of the dying. You lay Tommy down amid the carnage, amputated limbs in buckets, nurses like Sister Maria stripping bloody bandages. Outside, the barrage intensifies. What horrors await when dawn breaks and the counterattack hits? Dawn creeps over Anzio like a thief, painting the craters in blood-red light. You wipe Tommy's face with a rag that's more clot than cloth, his breaths now shallow rasps. Sister Maria kneels beside you, her habit splattered with viscera, murmuring a Hail Mary in Italian. "He's with the angels now, Doc," she whispers, closing his eyes. But there's no time to mourn. Shouts erupt from the wire. "Incoming," answers. The ground shudders as German Mark IVs rumble forward, their 75 millimeters guns barking. Tracers streak like fireflies from the beachheads, 50 cal emplacements stitching the mist. You snatch your aid kit and bolt out, heart pounding like a trip hammer. Private Eddie Kowalski's screaming from a foxhole 50 feet away, his left arm's gone at the shoulder, bone shards protruding like broken teeth. "Doc, God, it hurts." Sulfa powder clouds the air, stinging your eyes. A Panther tank's cannon booms, direct hit on the pillbox to your right. Bricks and bodies explode outward, raining debris. You shield Eddie with your body, shrapnel peppering your pack like hail. Hauling him back, you dodge a Fritz MG-42's buzzsaw chatter-sewing machine from hell, 1,200 rounds a minute. Your thigh wound reopens, hot copper flooding your boot. At the tent, LT, Cohen sawing off a corporal's crushed leg, the bone crunch audible over the din. Hargrove, triage the burns from the napalm strike priority 1. Nurses triage by the lights. Expectant immediate and ... minimal. You spot Sergeant Ramirez, face melted like wax, skin sloughing off in sheets. Morphine barely touches that agony. As you peel away charred fatigues, he grabs your wrist. "Tell my wife I love her." His grip weakens. Outside, the panzers grind closer. Will the line hold? Or will Jerry overrun the aid station by noon? Noon scorches the beachhead like a blowtorch, the sun baking blood into black crusts on the sand. You stagger from Ramirez's cot, his final whisper echoing in your skull, hands raw from peeling necrotic flesh. The air vibrates low growl of treads chewing barbed wire. Panzers through the line. A runner yells, voice cracking. You grab your satchel, morphine syrettes rattling like dice in hell, and sprint toward the breach. Flares burst overhead, illuminating the nightmare. 2 Mark IVS, squat and level, hauled down behind a shattered seawall, their turrets swiveling like praying mantises. Machine gun fire rakes the dunes. G is from the 179th Infantry, tumbling like puppets with cut strings. You drop beside Corporal Lena Vasquez, her bar gunner Parker eviscerated across her lap, entrails steaming in the heat. Doc. Can't see, she gasps. Eyes milky with corneal flash burns from an 88mm airburst. You flush them with saline from your canteen, the fluid pink as she winces. A shell screams and explodes 20 yards off, concussing the air, peppering her back with fragments. Blood wells from a dozen punctures. You pack them with shell dressing, tying field expedients with her own bootlaces. Stay low, Lena. Rangers are counterattacking. But the panzers advance, crushing foxholes under 80 tons of steel. You hear the screams first, then see Private First Class Jamal Hayes. Legs pulped beneath a track, dragging himself by his elbows, leaving a red smear. His femorals severed clean. Blood pulses in a fire hose gush. You plunge a tourniquet stick into the stump, twisting until the flow slows to a seep, but shock setting in his skin turns the color of candle wax. Mama ... cold. Around you, bazooka teams fire and die, rockets blooming harmlessly on sloped armor. One tank's machine gun chatters. Hayes jerks, 3 holes blooming in his chest. You shield his face with your helmet as you drag the body aside, another for the meat wagon. LT. Cohen's voice crackles over the field phone in the aid tent. Hargrove. Incoming wounded overload. Abandon the forward positions. Sister Maria appears through the smoke, carrying a litter with a headless GI, necked a ragged stump pumping like a broken faucet. You help her lower him. Arterial spray paints her veil scarlet. The Lord's testing us, she says, but her hands shake. Outside, a panther rounds the dune, its cannon traversing toward the tent cluster. Bazooka whoosh hit. Flames erupt, but the turret still spins. Will the beast's final shot claim the aid station and everyone inside? The panther's 75mm roars, a thunderclap that flattens you against the sand. The shell rips through the aid tent 20 feet away, canvas shredding like paper, igniting in a whoosh of kerosene and promethium. Flames leap skyward, devouring crates of bandages and plasma bottles that burst like overripe fruit. Screams pierce the Inferno LT. Cohen staggers out, uniform ablaze from the waist down, skin bubbling black. You tackle him, rolling him in the surf to smother the fire. But his legs are core-cold ruins, femurs exposed like lightning-struck trees. Morphine ... all of it, he gasps through clenched teeth. You jam 2 syrettes into his thigh. His eyes glaze as shock claims him. Sister Maria drags a litter past, her habit smoking, carrying what's left of Private Kowalski torso, ventilated by shrapnel, lungs frothing pink foam. Doc, the walking wounded they're pouring in. You spin toward the beach. Dozens stumble from the dunes. G is with sucking chest wounds, clutching plastic bags over punctured lungs, faces gray as ash. One, Sergeant Hank Bulldog Mueller from the 36th Engineers, clutches his eviscerated belly, intestines trailing like wet ropes. He's walking somehow, propelled by adrenaline and denial, muttering, "Gotta fix the bridge, ... You catch him as he collapses, stuffing loops of bowel back inside with sulfa-gloved hands, clamping with battle dressing. Infection's a death sentence without antibiotics, but gangrene waits for no man. The beachhead's a slaughter pen now dead, littering the wire like driftwood. Medics like you, trudging amid the dead. A blast wave from an 88mm airburst flattens a squad nearby. You crawl to them, ears ringing, finding Lance Corporal Rico Alvarez impaled on rebar from a shattered bunker. A spike through his liver skewering him like a shish kebab. Blood bubbles from his mouth as you cut the bar free with bolt cutters, plasma gushing. Ayuda, Doc. His agony's raw morphine barely dulling the fire. You stabilize the bleeder with a Penrose drain fashioned from a rubber glove, but his pressure's tanking hypovolemic shock. Around you, nurses like Ensign Patricia O'Neill work in pairs. One holding plasma bottles aloft, while the other injects into veins, gone flat as pancakes. Artillery walks inland, buying time as Navy destroyers offshore pound the panzers with 5-inchers. But Jerry's counter-battery zeros in a whistling freight train of shells marching toward the beach. One detonates amid the walking wounded. Limbs cartwheel through the air. A private's head bouncing past your boot like a discarded cantaloupe. Mueller seizes beside you, his jury-rigged bowel pack rupturing in a fecal stench. As you fight to repack it, a runner slides in. Doc Hargrove. Brass wants all medics pulled back, Kesselring's massing, for a full breakthrough at dusk. The wounded keep coming, endless as the tide. Can you evacuate before the krauts roll over everything? Dusk bleeds purple across the Anzio flats, shadows lengthening like fingers clawing for the living. You sling Muller's litter over your shoulder, his belly a sodden mess, leaking through the compress, the stench of perforated bowel turning your stomach. Move, move! Captain Harlan Ironjaw Fletcher bellows from the command dugout, his megaphone cutting through the chaos. Ducklings those half-dead G is who can hobble stagger toward the Liberty ships offshore, prodded by MPs with fixed bayonets. But the real wounded fill the litters. Stacks of them on the bloody sand, moans rising like a dirge. Sister Maria's veil hangs in tatters as she ties tourniquets one-handed, her other arm bandaged from shrapnel. A jeep screeches up, driverless, riddled with holes, careening into a crater. You dive aside, grabbing Ensign O'Neill, who's trudging a cluster of blast victims. Their eardrums ruptured, blood streaming from noses and ears like crimson tears. Doc, this one's got a tension pneumo. She points to Private Leroy Jenkins, chest swelling like a balloon, trachea deviated from air trapped under pressure. You jam a 14-gauge needle between his ribs' hiss of escaping gas, his color pinking slightly. Good work, Pat. Load him for the hospital ship. But Jerry's Nebelwerfers scream in screaming meanies, multi-barreled rockets turning the beach into a firestorm. One barrage walks through the litters. Bodies convulse, eviscerated by blast waves that suck the air from lungs. You haul Jenkins toward the landing craft, waves slapping the ramp red with runoff. A destroyer offshore unleashes a salvo starshells popping, illuminating the horror. G is drowning in shallows, too weak to swim, packs dragging them under. Sergeant Vasquez clings to your arm, her flash-burned eyes bandaged, whispering, "Don't leave me, Doc." You boost her aboard, but a Fritz spotter plane buzzes low, machine guns stitching the water, bullets churn foam. A coxswain slumps over the tiller, skull caved in. The craft lurches, Jenkins sliding overboard. You lunge, snagging his web gear, muscles screaming as salt water burns your wounds. Back on the beach, LT, Cohen's litter team hits a minefield click boom. Limbs scatter anew. You sprint to help, finding Cohen himself pinned under a flipped jeep, compound fracture of the femur tenting his pants, white bone gleaming. Hargrove ... get the men out. That's an order. Morphine hits his carotid. He fades as you improvise a traction splint from rifle slings. Sister Maria prays over a dying boy, his face sheared off by ricochet, teeth grinning through hamburger. Kesselring's breakthrough horns, panzer grenadiers in half-tracks, Sturmgewers chattering. A runner gasps, "Doc." Last craft leading in 5 krauts at the wire. The beach evacuates in frenzy, but dozens lie abandoned, expectants waving you on with bloody stumps. As the ramp grinds up, engines roaring, will the panzers overrun the stragglers before the sea swallows them whole? The landing craft churns through surf, laced with oil slicks and floating corpses, engines coughing like a tubercular patient. You brace against the gunwale, salt spray stinging the raw gash on your cheek from shrapnel you didn't feel until now. Private Jenkins wheezes beside you, his chest tube bubbling seawater, while Sergeant Vasquez clutches the side, blindfolded head lolling with each swell. "Doc, are we safe?" She murmurs. You scan the horizon. Anzio's a pyre now. Orange blooms where panzers torch the dunes, tracers arcing like fireflies into the night. But safe? No beachhead medic believes that word anymore. A destroyer escort, USS Murphy, heaves to alongside, nets dangling for the climb. You lash litters to lines, hoisting them hand over hand as the ship pitches. Ensign O'Neill slips on the Jacob's ladder, her ankles snapping with a wet crack ironic, the healer broken. You catch her harness, muscles burning from hauling flesh all day, and haul her aboard. Bloudix, the wardroom's a charnel house. Hammocks slung with wounded, corpsemen like Petty Officer Zeke Ramirez stitching bayonet gashes from the rearguard fight. Plasma hangs from every stanchion, dripping into arms veined blue from blood loss. Sister Maria tends a cluster of burn victims, her prayers drowned by moans that syncopate with the screw's thrum. But betrayal waits in the dark. A lookout shouts, "U-boat, torpedo wake starboard." The deck erupts klaxons wailing, GIS tumbling from bunks. You grab the rail as the Murphy heels hard, depth charges tumbling astern in frothy booms. The sub surfaces briefly, a black dagger under moonlight, deck gun flashing. Shells straddle one punches through the hull amidships, flooding the sick bay. Water roars in, sweeping away cots and men alike. You dive after Vasquez, who's tumbled into the torrent, her bandages unraveling. Fingers snag her collar. You kick for the ladder, lungs burning, emerging into chaos as corpsemen pump bilges. Cohen, traction-splinted leg lashed to a bulkhead, seizes from fat embolism tiny clots from his marrow, storming his brain. Hargrove ... coding. Can single quotes D ... dub quotes his jaw locks in tetany. You pry it open, flooding his fore with whatever's left, but his eyes roll back. Ramirez yells from the hatch, "Doc!" Hospital ship LST-472 signaling plague aboard. Typhus from Pose, they're quarantining. The Murphy veers away, but Jerry's wolf pack circles. A second torpedo thuds home forward bulkheads groan. Lights flicker. Jenkins gurgles, drowning in his own chest cavity. As conning tower horns wail in the distance, and the deck lists toward the abyss, will the medics abandon ship into shark-infested waters, or ride the steel coffin down? The USS Murphy lists starboard, a dying leviathan groaning as bulkheads buckle under the sea's fist. You stagger along the tilting deck, water sheeting ankle-deep, grabbing anything solid rail, line, the slick hide of a floating life jacket. Alarms wail like banshees. "Abandon ship! Abandon ship!" Booms from the loudspeakers. Captain Ellis's voice cracking with fatigue. Sister Maria clings to a stanchion, her rosary beads scattering into the foam, hauling Ensign O'Neill, whose broken ankle dangles useless. "Doc, the litters, they're going under." You spot Vasquez's form, bobbing amid debris, chest tube flapping like a broken wing. A plunge over the side icy Mediterranean shock slaps your face, sucking breath from lungs already raw from cordite. Life rafts inflate amid the flotsam, blood-streaked Kapok mattresses, crates of K-rations bursting open. You paddle toward Vasquez, strokes frantic against the swell, fins of dorsal shadows circling in the phosphorescence. Private Jenkins floats face down nearby, his improvised chest tube trailing like an umbilicus to nowhere. Ramirez thrashes beside you, yelling, "Sharks! Christ, the sharks!" A gray shape breaches thresher fin slicing moonlight, then submerges. Panic ripples through the survivors. 200 souls clinging to anything buoyant, moans mingling with the slosh of waves. You lash Vasquez to a raft with belt webbing, her blindfold sodden, pulse thready under your fingers. Stay with me, Lana. Dawn's coming. Hours bleed into eternity, cold gnawing marrow deep. Typhus rumors spread like fever coughs rack the raft. Lice visible on exposed skin from the quarantined LST. A corpsman delirious from fever bites Ramirez, teeth sinking into forearm. Blood slicks the wood. You improvise sulfa from a floating aid kit, but infection's a specter. Sister Maria leads prayers, voice hoarse. Deliver us from evil ... But evil fin circles. A screen pierces the night GI yanked under water boiling white. Fins multiply. The sea reaps its toll. O'Neill's ankle swells purple, gangrene whispering in the wet bandages. You lance it with a penknife sterilized in cognac from a shattered flask, pus squirting like curdled milk. Her shriek echoes. God, Doc, make it stop. Dawn gilds the horizon, P-51 Mustangs droning overhead rescue? No, they're vectoring on a convoy silhouette miles off. Dehydration sets in, lips crack, tongues swell like leather. A destroyer USS Laffey finally spots the rafts, signal lamps blinking. Grapples descend, nets hauling the living aboard. But as you're winched up, dangling like bait, a final fin surges snapping at Ramirez's legs mid-air. He screams, calves shredded to bone. Medics swarm the deck, triaging anew. Saltwater ulcers, exposure hypothermia. Shark bites weeping yellow. Vasquez stabilizes, whispering your name. Sister Maria collapses from exhaustion, pulse faint. LT? Cohen? Gone to the depths. The Laffey steams for Naples, but whispers circulate. Next stop Monte Cassino. The Abbey's a kraut fortress. As infection flares in the crammed sickbay, will Hargrove's team survive the Gothic Line meat grinder? Or shatter under endless agony? Naples harbor reeks of quinine and gangrene. The Laffey's gangway, a sluice of stretchers under arc lights harsh as interrogators' lamps. You limp ashore, thigh wound festering under field dressing, supporting Ensign O'Neill, whose gangrenous ankle you've kept at bay with sulfa scavenged from the raft. Ramirez hobbles behind, shark-torn calves wrapped in oil-soaked gauze, his curses a litany against the sea. Sister Maria revives in the field hospital tent, 4 glucose dripping into veins mapped blue by exhaustion. Monte Cassino awaits, the triage officer mutters, sorting you into the 34th Division's meat pipeline. No rest trucks rumble north at dawn, winding into the Leary Valley's gut, where mountains claw the sky and the Abbey looms like a crucified giant. February 15th, 1944. 11 a.m., Monte Cassino Heights. The Abbey explodes under B-17 bombs, 2,300 tons of high explosive, turning 1,400 years of stone to rubble. You huddle in a reverse-slope foxhole with the 133rd Infantry, dust clouding the air thick as mustard gas. Sergeant Vasquez, bandages off now revealing scarred corneas that squint at shadows, grips her M1. Doc, I can see ghosts. The shockwave flattens you. Rocks pelt like divine wrath. Then the counterattack. Fallschirmjäger paratroopers, elite devils in camo smocks, swarming the scree with MG-42s yammering. Bullets chip boulders inches from your helmet, ricochets whining like hornets. You crawl forward into the maelstrom. First casualty, Private Frankie Lombardi got shot by a Schmeisser burst, peritoneal cavity flooding with bile. His hands paw at the entry wound, a sucking crater leaking fecal slurry. ... feels like fire ants inside ... You pack it with Curlix, morphine hitting his deltoid, but peritonitis looms inevitable without surgery. A mortar round craters nearby. Shrapnel peppers the squad. Lance Corporal Timmy Hawley screams, both legs pulped to hamburger by jagged steel, femurs compound fractured into meaty puzzles. You apply 2 tourniquets high, twisting with entrenching tool handles, but arterial bleed soaks your arms to the elbows. Hang on, kid. Dust-offs inbound. Lige choppers don't fly this kill zone. Nurses in the RAP, regimental aid post, burrowed into a bombed-out monastery cellar, work by flashlight, plasma bottles swinging from rafters, saws whining through tibias. O'Neill, reassigned despite her limp, clamps a subclavian bleeder on a paratrooper POW, irony's bitter pill, his artery pulsing like a garden hose. Ramirez stitches blast lacerations, pus oozing from embedded gravel. Sister Maria baptizes the dying with Chianti from a shattered altar cruet. But the Abbey rubble hides snipers. One picks off a litter bearer. 98,000 round through the neck, decapitating him mid-stride. Blood fountains 6 feet. Vasquez fires blindly, her vision a blur, dropping a shadow. You drag Lombardi back, rubble avalanching, lungs choked with limestone grit. Night falls, cold as judgment. Phosphorus flares turn the valley to hellscape. Assault squads claw up the slopes, bayonets flashing. A flamethrower teen torches a cave. Human torches stagger out, skin sloughing, begging for tags. You douse one with canteen water, but 3rd-degree circumferential burns mean no survival. Morphine cocktail. 3 syrettes, his screams fading to gurgles. LT. Colonel Tucker's runner slides in. Doc Hargrove. Gothic Line push at dawn. Kesselring's shifting panzers. Medics to the spearhead. The Abbey's ruins pulse with hidden eyes. As you bind Hale's stumps amid the dead piled like cordwood, will the final assault bury Hargrove's team under avalanche and fire, or forge them through to Rome's gates? Dawn's gray pallor seeps over the casino rubble like spilled mercury, the air thick with the copper tongue of blood and the chalky reek of pulverized bone. You shoulder your aid kit, heavier now with scavenged sulfa from the RAP cellar, and follow the spearhead up the mule track toward the Gothic Line. Kesselring's concrete teeth barring the road to Rome. Sergeant Vasquez shadows you, her scarred eyes narrowed to slits, M1 slung low. Doc, I see a moving in the mist, she mutters. Ramirez limps beside, shark scars suppurating under fresh dressings, while Ensign O'Neill hitches a ride on a half-track, morphine pistol at her hip for the worst cases. Sister Maria trails the column, satchel of sacramentals her only weapon. The Gothic Line erupts at 063 0-88 millimeters flak guns, thundering from camouflaged emplacements, shells plowing furrows that swallow squads whole. Private Lombardi, still clinging to life on a litter lashed to a mule, bounces in agony, his peritonitic belly rigid as a drum. Doc, dot, 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 kill me, dot, dot, dot. You up the morphine drip from a scavenged bottle, but sepsis clouds his mind with hallucinations. A minefield claims the point element. Tripwire snaps, daisy-chained S-mines leaping skyward in fountains of earth and limbs. Corporal Eddie Sparks Malone lands intact, but for his feet blown off at the ankles, boots smoldering empty nearby. Blood pools fast. You clamp the tibial arteries with hemostats from your kit, fashioning stirrups from radio wire to hoist his legs skyward. Gravity your only ally. Fallschirmjäger pour from spider holes. STG-44S barking in controlled bursts, new wonder weapons, chewing through web gear like paper. You dive into a shell hole with Lance Corporal Hall, his double amputation oozing serum, phantom pains making him thrash. Legs dot dot, I feel am burning. A grenade rolls in pineapple, frag you booted out. Blast wave concussing your eardrums. Shrapnel rakes the rim. Hawley takes a shard through the trachea, sucking chest wound, whistling like a harmonica. You seal it with Vaseline gauze, and a 50 cal casing tube thoracostomy draining bloody froth. Breathe shallow, Sparks. Help's coming. But the line's a meat grinder. Concrete pillboxes spitting fire. Engineers dynamiting Dragon's teeth, only to trigger flamethrower counterfire. In the forward aid point, a blasted farmhouse O'Neill and Ramirez triage under red-filtered lanterns. A GI with abdominal evisceration from 20mm cannon fire lies splayed, small bowel uncoiling like party streamer onto the dirt floor. Ramirez repacks it methodically, intestinal clamps biting slippery tissue. Perforations everywhere, Doc fecal peritonitis in hours. Sister Maria anoints a boy with bayonet gutting, his intestines lacerated in neat slashes, face pale as host bread. You arrive hauling Malone, dumping him on a table slick with previous leavings. O'Neill's hands fly, debragment saw rasping bone, ligatures snapping shut bleeders. Outside, Panzers growl Jaguars with 88mm long barrels, whole machine guns, hosing the advance. Vasquez spots the ambush first. Panzerfaust team, left flank. Rockets streak, punching through Sherman tracks in orange fireballs. Crewmen bail out, one engulfed in flames, rolling on the ground as you smother him with a pup tent soaked in mud. His screams bubble through blistered lips. 3rd degree full thickness, no skin grafts saving this. Morphine max dose, he stills. But the real horror unfolds in the minefield aftermath, walking wounded staggering back. Faces pulped by ricochet, jaws unhinged, tongues lolling. One clutches eyeballs dangling on optic nerves like yo-yos. You improvise orbital packing, but socket infections brew. Colonel Tucker's order crackles over the SCR 536. Push the breach. Medics embedded no fallback. Night deepens, very pistols popping to mark positions amid the wire. A panther brews up nearby, secondary explosions hurling track links like scythes. Ramirez takes shrapnel in the shoulder, clavicle shattered. You reduce it with tractor pull from rifle sling. Sister Maria's hit shrapnel kiss to the thigh, femoral nick sprang. You tie it off with her own scapular strap. As the Gothic Line's bunkers loom closer, machine guns traversing like scythes, a massive barrage preps the final assault. Mines click underfoot. Will Hargrove's ragged band breach the wall of death, or become its latest mortar fodder in the shadow of Rome? The Gothic Line's bunkers belch fire like dragon's maws. Tracer streams converging on the breach point in a lethal lattice. You hunker in the wire entanglement, Ramirez's shoulder clamped with your last battle dressing, blood seeping through as he winces. Keep pressure, Zeke clavicles knitting crooked, but it'll hold. Sergeant Vasquez fires from the hip, her scarred eyes locking on a Panzergrenadier silhouette. Her M1 cracks, dropping him in a ragdoll sprawl. Sister Maria, thigh tourniquet twisted tight with a rosary chain, passes morphine syrettes like communion wafers. Ensign O'Neill shouts from the farmhouse ruins. Doc! Wave incoming human mind detectors. G is with probes ahead of the tanks, sweeping for S-mines that leap and shred. Artillery lifts your barrage, turning concrete to powder, but the human wave surges. 36th Division boys over the Dragon's teeth, Bangalore torpedoes blasting gaps. Private Malone, feet freshly bandaged into bloody stumps, crawls behind on elbows, dragging his aid kit. Doc, gotta keep up. A Stu G3 assault gun traverses from a revetment, 75mm, slamming the lead Sherman into a fireball. Turret hatches blow, crew tumbling out wreathed in flame skin crisping audible over the roar. You sprint to the nearest, smothering him with sand from a crater, but inhalation burns choke his screams, lungs boiled from superheated air. Tags ... morphine into the neck. He arches once. Gone. The breach holds barely. Fall Shermger countercharge, with potato mashers arcing like deadly hail. One bursts amid a squad. Lance Corporal Howell, double AMP waiting for dust-off, takes frag to the groin Pinot degloving. testicles pulped into a bloody froth. His howl pierces the din. No! God, no! You pack the avulsion with petrolatum gauze, clamping pudendal bleeders, but psychological trauma hits harder than lead shock, deeper than blood loss. You're still a man, Halle. Focus on breathing. Vasquez drags him back, her own flak jacket hold but shallow. Inside the bunker's guts, now a tomb of twisted rebar, Ramirez clears a path for the wounded. A Kraut medic white armband soiled tends their own, but a GI bayonets him mid-stride, Geneva be damned. You pull a half-dozen casualties from the pile. Abdominal clusters from grenades, loops of cologne hanging like deflated balloons. Sulfa powder clouds the charnel air as you repack, intestinal viability, questionable hours to necrosis. O'Neill ligates a carotid on a GI with neck entry-exit, jetting blood painting the walls arterial red. Sister Maria whispers last rites over Malone, whose phantom foot pains convulse him anew. Rome's spires glint distant, tantalizing through the pass. But Kesselring's reserves rumble Hetzer tank destroyers, low-slung killers slinking through the smoke. A runner collapses at your feet, lungs shredded by MP40 bursts, frothy hemoptysis bubbling. Dot, dot, dot. Panzers flanking the aid point. They're rolling it up. You glance back, the farmhouse wrap engulfed, flames licking skyward. O'Neill's silhouette vanishes in the blaze. Ramirez screams her name. Vasquez grabs your arm. We push or die here. Colonel Tucker's voice on the radio. Hargrove. Medics to the Van Rome by dawn or bust. The Gothic wall crumbles, but at what butcher's bill? As Stu G cannons zero the lead elements, will Hargrove's ghosts reach the Eternal City, or fade into the Appian Way's blood-soaked dust? Smoke from the burning farmhouse wrap coils skyward like accusatory fingers as you charge the Gothic breach. Vasquez at your flank, her M1 barking short bursts into the haze. Ramirez staggers behind, shoulder wound reopened, trailing crimson droplets that dot the scree. O'Neill. She was right there. He rasps, eyes hollow. No time for grief. The Hetzers prowl the reverse slope, squat casemates with 75 millimeters Pak-42s punching through Shermans like tin cans. One bruise up 50 yards off. Ammunition cook-off sending white-hot shrapnel sleeting your way. You dive, shards slicing your calf like hot razors, but the wounds superficial keep moving. June 4th, 1944. Dawn's light fractures over the Alban Hills, Rome's dome shimmering mirage-like through the carnage. The 34th pushes hard, engineers bridging shell craters with felled pines, while GIs swarm the flanks. Private Frankie Lombardi miracle survivor from Casino humps, a litter solo. His peritonitis scar puckered white, carrying Lance Corporal Hall, whose groin avulsion festers under fly-blown dressings. Doc, he's septic temps 104. Hall-A deliriums, muttering about phantom manhood, pus-draining yellow rivers. You lance the abscess with a bayonet heated cherry red, foul ichor squirting, sulfa jammed in like mortar. Fight it, Hal. Rome's waiting. Fall Schermger diehards hold the last ridgeline. Nebelwerfers hosing the advance with chemical-tipped rounds mustard blisters blooming on exposed skin. A GI staggers past, face a mask of yellow vesicles weeping serum, corneas clouded white. Blind and choking, he claws at his throat. You slit a tracheostomy with your scalpel, tube from a penlight inserted, but pulmonary edema drowns him pink. Sister Maria, thigh wound scabbed but limping, splints compound fractures amid the pines. Tie biphoebe shatter from 20 millimeters hits, bones protruding like snapped branches. Her prayers mix with screams as a dying paratrooper begs Wasser water denied, per protocol, his tongue swollen black. The spearhead hits the outskirts via Appia, choked with burned-out half-tracks. Civilians waving from doorways, faces gaunt from Sfalamento. But Jerry snipers nest in the aqueduct ruins, car 9/8 cracking deliberate. Vasquez takes a round through the meat of her shoulder entry clean. Exit cratered with hydrostatic cavitation. She drops, blood sheeting her arm. Lena, pressure. You clamp the axillary artery pulsing like a fire hose. Morphine into the clavicle, but subclavian veins nicked massive hematoma ballooning her chest. Ramirez fashions a sling from enemy webbing, hauling her as P-47 Thunderbolts strafe the retreat. Colonel Tucker liberates the Coliseum at noon, but victory's Pyrrhic. Aid stations overflow in the forum's shadows, marble slick with plasma runoff. You triage POW medics, treating their own amid the Arch's shared Hell Trump's flags. Halle codes on a travertine slab, septic shock claiming him. Tags collected with trembling fingers. Sister Maria anoints a cluster of eviscerated boys, their bellies opened by shrapnel, small bowel necrotic black. No penicillin left gangrene's reaper. Ramirez collapses, shark wounds infected anew, fever raging. Vasquez whispers, "We made it. ... Rome." But whispers circulate. Next southern France, Dragoon landings. Medics to the Riviera beaches. As you stitch a bayonet gutting under olive trees, heavy with unripe figs, a staff car rolls up General Clark himself, slapping backs. Flashbulbs pop. But your hands shake with the ghosts. Cohen, Jenkins, O'Neill. Rome's gates swing open, but the war's maw hungers north. With Dragoon looming and Hargrove's team whittled to bone, will the Riviera bloodbath finally break the medics or hammer them into unbreakable steel? August 15th, 1944. 0400 hours. Alpha Red Beach, Saint-Tropez, southern France. Operation Dragoon. Surf crashes cold and black against the ramp of your Higgins boat, diesel fumes choking the air as the ramp drops with a hydraulic clang. You grip your aid kit, salt spray already soaking your fatigues, the whine of Luftwaffe spotters droning overhead. Vasquez crouches beside you, shoulder scar puckered tight, eyes sharp despite the morphine haze from Rome. Ramirez mans the 30 cal amidships, shark-bitten legs braced wide, fever broken, but wounds weeping under fresh sulfadiazine. Sister Maria clutches her satchel cross, murmuring Ave Marias as green water floods the hull. "Go! Go!" the coxswain bellows. You plunge into waist-deep breakers, laced with diesel rainbows. Bullets from shore MG nests already snapping the waves like whips. The beach erupts 88mm beach defense guns from the 11th Panzer Division hidden in villas hammering LSTs offshore, Liberty ships blooming into fireballs that light the pre-dawn like false suns. You slog forward, dragging Private Angelo Rossi, whose lung punctured on the ramp drop, hemothorax bubbling pink froth from his mouth. Can't breathe. You jab a needle into his chest wall, hiss of trapped air escaping, his gasps easing to wheezes. Mines detonate underfoot. Teller mines shredding feet to gristle, GIS hopping on bloody stumps toward the dunes. Vasquez hauls one. Lance Corporal Billy Tate, his toes pulped into red paste, tibial arteries clamped with bootlaces twisted tourniquet tight. Keep kicking, Kid Dunes have cover. Shore batteries zero the follow-on waves. A landing craft infantry flips end over end, troops spilling into the churn like chum. Ramirez spots a floater Sergeant Kip Landry, tangled in his pack, drowning in full kit, face blue as ink. You swim out, cutting straps with your shears, towing him landward as prop wash from a strafing Rue 88 churns the sea. Luftwaffe cannon fire stitches the surf. A round punches Landry's thigh mid-haul. Femoral midsection vaporized in a crimson plume. Blood loss hits like a hammer, his eyes roll white. You pack the crater with Curlix, pressure dressing bulging like a softball, but coagulopathy from seawater sets in. Sister Maria reaches the shallows, dragging a nurse with eviscerated belly from the capsized LCI, intestines buoyant and tangled in seaweed. The dunes become a slaughter alley. Concrete pillboxes camouflaged with Riviera oleanders, spitting Spando fire. Rangers blast entries with satchel charges, boom human torches stumbling out, phosphorus eating through uniforms and flesh alike. You smother one. Corporal Jean-Luc Moreau, French resistance liaison turned GI. His screams French curses bubbling through charred lips. Inhalation burns swell his airway shut. Emergency cricothyrotomy with your scalpel and a fountain pen barrel, but edema claims him. Vasquez takes grazing shrapnel across the ribs flail chest, paradoxical breathing sucking inward with each exhale. You stabilize with a towel-clip tension device fashioned from beach debris, her gasps ragged. Keep ... pushing ... By 0700, the Beachhead clings tenuously, Navy destroyers pounding strongpoints with 5 inchers that shake the earth. But casualties stack like cordwood, sucking chest wounds sealed with cellophane from K rations, compound fractures pinned with rifle bayonets. Ramirez triages in a shell crater turned aid post, debriding maggot-ridden shark scars on his own legs while stitching abdominal clusters. Sister Maria injects plasma into flat veins, bottles hung from dune grass. A runner slides in, helmet hold but skull intact. Hargrove. Krauts counter-attacking from the Estral Hills Panzers and 90th Panzer Grenadiers. Medics to Route Nationale 98. As Rhino ferries grind ashore with more meat for the grinder, and the hills echo with the growl of tiger tanks. Will Dragoon's medics carve through the Riviera's paradise turned hell, or drown in the blood tide before Marseilla's gates? Route Nationale 98 snakes through olive groves turned charnel fields, the Estral Hills vomiting panzers like iron demons from Hades. You bounce in the back of a deuce-and-a-half ambulance. Vasquez slumped beside you, flail chest stabilized, but each pothole drawing a hiss through clenched teeth. Ramirez drives, shark scars splitting open from recoil of his commandeered Thompson, fever sweat beading his brow. Sister Maria tends a stack of litters. Private Rossi's hemithorax drained into a jerry can. Lance Corporal Tate's mangled feet blackening with dry gangrene despite sulfanilamide dustings. Marseille by nightfall, the radio man crackles. Ports the prize crowds wired to blow. But the road's a kill zone. Tiger tanks hull down on ridges. 88mm KWK shells airbursting overhead in shrieking cascades of steel rain. The convoy hits the ambush at Wien's Crossroads Panzer Grenadiers in half tracks. G-42's buzzsawing at 1,300 rounds per minute, turning windshields to spiderwebs of blood. The truck ahead erupts. Fuel tank cooking off in a fireball that singes your eyebrows. You bail out rolling, aid kit skidding into a ditch clogged with ruptured intestines from the blast. Vasquez fires from cover, dropping a loader scrambling for an MG, but a shrapnel burst peppers her leg's tibial fractures compound, bones tenting fatigues white and splintered. Doc, can't feel them. You drag her behind a smoldering wreck. Splinting with fence wire and rifle stock, morphine flooding her system as femoral bleed pulses hot. Ramirez covers you, subgun chattering until a Tiger's coaxial MG stitches his chest 3 holes blooming, sucking wounds whistling in unison. Marseilla's port looms by dusk. Viewport a fortress of cranes and warehouses rigged with satchel charges. Rangers storm the docks under naval gunfire. But the human cost is apocalypse. GIs eviscerated by booby-trapped bollards, bowels uncoiling into the oily harbor. You wade through chest-deep carnage, trudging amid the quay's slick gore. Sister Maria hauls Tate, whose gangrenous feet slough off at the ankles mid-curry auto-amputation from clostridial myonecrosis, ass bubbling under skin like fermentation. Lord have mercy, she whispers. But her hands blister from plasma burns. Private Rossi codes beside a capstan, tension pneumothorax collapsing his good lung. You needle it futilely, both sides failed now. The final push. Commandos breach the German CP in the Cathedral de la Major, bayonets red to hilts. You follow, finding Ramirez propped against an altar, lungs frothing crimson, one eye shot away. Doc, doll my kids. Sharks weren't the worst. Morphine into the carotid. He slumps, tags slit in your palm. Vasquez drags herself forward on elbows, legs useless trails of meat, whispering, Rome, peaches, we did it. Her pulse threads out under your fingers' exsanguination. Sister Maria takes a ricochet through the temple mid-prayer. Collapsing over Tate's corpse, her habit a shroud for them both. September 1st, 1944, Marseille falls. You stagger onto the quay alone, hands trembling, kit empty of everything but ghosts. General Patch pins a silver star on your blood-crusted fatigues, flashbulbs popping like distant artillery. But the horrors linger, the gut-shot boy's final pleas. The charred screens, the sea's fins, and mountains' rubble. Medics like Hargrove didn't win wars. They stitched the dead back to life one lie at a time, until the lies became you. Beyond the uniform? Just a man hollowed by 18 months of hell, waiting for the Rhine or Bulge to claim what's left. The war ground on. Hargrove survived to V-Day, broken but breathing. But the true horrors? They never ended.